The small city of Metropolis, at the southernmost border of Illinois, is best known for its self-described claim to fame as being the birthplace of the fictional comic book hero Superman. However, the town's real-life native son is author and filmmaker Oscar Micheaux, the superhero of black cinema. Oscar was born in 1884 to former slaves Calvin and Belle Micheaux, who traveled out of Kentucky over the Ohio River, establishing a homestead where the boy spent his early years farming. Eventually, he made his way to Chicago, where he worked in the stockyards, shined shoes, and eventually landed a prestigious and comparatively well-paid job as a Pullman porter. Surely this opportunity contributed significantly to a wider understanding of the world and introduced him to a more diverse social strata that no doubt played a big part in his future success. This is Reno Lovison, executive producer at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com, where we share information about things we like to do in Chicago and stories that we think might be of interest to you as a resident or visitor. This month we're offering a series of reviews and commentary related to films being shown as part of the 57th Annual Chicago International Film Festival. I'm focusing on this film about Oscar Micheaux, the superhero of black cinema, because he was born in Illinois and spent a fair amount of time in Chicago while pursuing his very interesting life's journey. Oscar Micheaux's experience as a Pullman porter brought him into contact with new people and places that contributed significantly to his future enterprises. This might be a good time to mention that Chicago listeners might also be interested in knowing about and visiting the National Pullman Porter Museum, located in the historic Pullman District on Chicago's far south side, at 104th and Maryland, which incidentally is just a few short blocks from my own childhood home. Within a short period of time traveling the rails and seeing the country, Micheaux was able to obtain a small piece of land in South Dakota, where he had some success as a farmer. However, the harsh winters put his mind to other interests, and after a few years he wrote a book about his life experiences and escapades that he self-published, then sold door to door, apparently rather successfully within the black communities.
Pardon, miss, but a friend of yours sent me to see you.
Oh, indeed. What friend?
A lady friend, across the street.
A lady friend of mine across the street? Who can that be?
Yes, she said you were a great reader, and I'm selling a fine new novel by a Negro author. Everybody is buying it and reading it. I want to show it to you and take your order.
What's this? A picture of the author? Looks a little like you, but of course it isn't. Writers, from what I've read about them, would be too conceited on one hand, and then too stupid on the other to go out and sell their own books to make a living. It looks like it might be interesting at that, and I am a great reader.
Then you'll take one?
Oh, yes. If for no other reason than because it's by a colored author.
Very kind and considerate of you.
What's the price?
$2.
Okay.
Is it okay to deliver Saturday?
Sure. Any time after 5 o'clock.
Well, that's fine. Saturday then.
Saturday.
Thank you.
That scene is from Micheaux's movie Murder in Harlem, where you can see he's drawing from his own life experience and having a little fun doing it. After gaining some notoriety as an author, Micheaux turned down an offer to have one of his stories made into a moving picture. Instead, in true entrepreneurial spirit, he opted to buy some equipment, gather some people, and do it himself, starting him on a road that would ultimately establish him as the first major black filmmaker, going on to produce more than 40 feature films, directed at an underserved and underrepresented black audience. According to a Tribune article, Micheaux lived off and on in Chicago for decades, and in 1918 opened a film office in the South Loop. This is when his first film, The Homesteader, based on his experiences in South Dakota, was shot at the recently abandoned Selig Polyscope studio on Chicago's North Side. This film became phenomenally successful with African-American audiences, leading him to become a mini-mogul in the flourishing Chicago silent film scene. By the way, take a look at our story here at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com that tells all about Chicago as the hub of the early silent film industry, with studios in the Uptown and Edgewater neighborhoods before the limitless sunshine lured producers west to Hollywood. Micheaux's filmmaking business eventually brought him to Harlem, the undisputed black capital of segregated America, at the very dawn of what would become known as the Harlem Renaissance, putting him side by side with some of the most notable cultural icons of that era. Micheaux is in fact credited with hiring a young Paul Robeson before the actor became an international superstar. It seems that, aside from promoting his own written works, Micheaux had a desire to use his early silent films and later talkies to project a more wholesome and authentic view of African American life. Most notably a film called Within Our Gates, shot in Chicago, presumably intended to counteract the negative stereotypes that were being portrayed in white cinema, most notably in films like D.W. Griffith's 1915 blockbuster Birth of a Nation. At least from my perspective, Micheaux's story is as much about his entrepreneurial spirit as it is about his filmmaking. Not only did he write and produce film, but often appeared in small roles and set up his own distribution scheme, traveling across the country by train to hand-deliver films in order to ensure that they would be screened and seen in African American communities nationwide. It seems that he's one of those people who was going to create a place for himself in this world, no matter what it took. ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com listeners might be interested to know that in 1932, Micheaux shot a film called The Girl from Chicago, with an all-African-American cast. His last film, The Betrayal, produced in 1948, which has sadly been lost, was also produced in Chicago, shooting scenes throughout the South Side and on farms in Wisconsin and southern Michigan. The documentary film, Oscar Micheaux, the Superhero of Black Cinema, had its North American premiere as part of the 2021 Chicago International Film Festival. Directed by Francesco Zappel, it's a sort of meandering biographical documentary that gets this important story told through a number of expert interviews and original film clips. The importance of this documentary is perhaps to illustrate to younger generations that in the early 1900s there were a number of African American entrepreneurs who stepped in to fill a void created by segregation. They operated their professions and crafts parallel to the more influential white power structure by exploiting opportunities to serve a market that was otherwise being neglected. As a result of America's unofficial apartheid system, these early industrial pioneers rarely were recognized by the wider audience for the contributions they made. Oscar Micheaux, the Superhero of Black Filmmaking, is a useful contribution to the library of Black history subjects, placing Micheaux into the pantheon of individuals who contributed to the rise of 20th century African American culture and ultimately, in a more woke sense, to the fabric of American culture as a whole. Running time is 80 minutes. Visit ChicagoFilmFestival.com for more information. This is Reno Lovison, executive producer at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com, encouraging you to please take a second to like, share, and subscribe to our website or podcast at ChicagoBroadcastingNetwork.com or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. And of course, if you want to use video to tell a story of your own, check out RenoWeb.net.
Thanks. Oh, by the way, the girl you told me to go and see across the street, she bought a copy of the book, all right. Thanks to you for sending me to her.
I'm glad.
A rather pretty girl. What does she do?
That's a question I'd rather not answer.
Oh,